Welcome to Gaming Lariat on YouTube. I'm Walter Yeates, co-founder of GamingLariat.com, and today we're going to talk about who could possibly be in the G1 Climax 32. And we know Dominion is tomorrow morning if you're in the United States, but we're going to go ahead and talk about who could possibly be in the G1 Climax. By that time, we'll know who's going to be the IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion, the Never Openweight Champion, the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, and who holds the KOPW Championship trophy by the end of tomorrow morning. And then we'll be looking at the G1 Climax 32 for New Japan Pro Wrestling. But between that, there's also going to be Forbidden Door, which could also see titles change hands and also could have some storylines in play of who is going to be in G1 Climax 32. But yeah, I just want to go through possible names because in Japan, for those who don't know, the restrictions for COVID-19 are loosening, and by the time of G1 Climax 32, which is going to be on July the 16th, is when it begins, could possibly have fans making noise again, and that would be great. And also that means, typically with restrictions dropping, fans feel more comfortable coming into indoor venues, which since around March the 18th, when the first show after the last loosening of restrictions has seen New Japan have increased houses attendance throughout since that point in time. So it could definitely be a big period for increased houses and, more importantly, increased gates for New Japan. And you can also look at the attached article in the bio, or in the description, to look at just more detail of who is all the names listed, since I'm not going to go through all the names I listed that could be possibly in it, but we're going to get into that right now. The likely locks that I have for G1 Climax 32 are, Kazuchika Okada, who currently, as a recording of this, is the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. You have Zack Sabre Jr., who won New Japan Cup 2022, then Tetsuya Naito, Jay White, who might be the IWGP Heavyweight Champion by that time, and Shingo Takagi, Will Ospreay, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Jeff Cobb, Sonata, Tomohiro Ishii, Juice Robinson, who'll probably be healthy by then, and Sonata mentioned that he is back now, so he's likely going to be a definite lock. Great-O-Khan, Tama Tonga, who's currently right now Never Openweight Champion, Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi are likely going to be locks from the year that they have had while that's been tag action. It's still likely that they're going to be locks for the tournament. And then I think that's when it gets a little bit interesting of those who could possibly be in the tournament but might not be locks. People like Toru Yano, who's been in it for years, which I do think he's probably definitely going to be in it. I could just see him not being if they wanted to go in a different direction, but he's probably definitely going to be in it just for what he represents and how it's not as strenuous a match if you're wrestling against Toru Yano. Carl Anderson, who might be the openweight champion, but never openweight champion by that time. He's likely to be in it, Adam Page, who has been talking a lot about New Japan and AEW and has been in the G1 Climax before, could possibly be in it if everything goes well. The same can be said for Adam Cole, who a little bit lower down on the list, who's also been talking a lot about the Forbidden Door and everything. Could see one of those being in G1 Climax 32, since neither one of them are probably going to be AEW World Heavyweight Champion at that time. Aaron Henare and David Finlay, who have been knocking on the door of G1 for years since they graduated from the New Japan Dojo system, are two I could definitely see in it and would love to see both of them in it. We'll see how they progressed, and it would just be nice to see with both of them showing up on AEW in recent weeks, that it would be great to see both of them in it. And then people like Chase Owens, Carl Fredericks, T-Hawk, who has made who's talked a lot about wanting to have strong fight with New Japan. So that looks like that's something that could almost be a definite with him. Jake Lee of All Japan Pro Wrestling has made references to wanting to be in G1. You also have guys like Hikuleo. Alex Coughlin would be someone that would be interesting as well. You could see the LA Dojo guys, Carl Fredericks and Alex Coughlin. They would be very interesting to be in it. Then you also have guys like Tom Lawler and Fred Rosser, who've made names on New Japan Strong as well. They would be fun to see in a G1 Climax. And you have Jonah from Mighty Don't Kneel's been in New Japan Strong and making waves. Tongaloa, ELP, who ELP, after the Best of Super Juniors, even through it, he kept mentioning he wanted to be in G1 Climax 32, and then also Bad Luck Fale, who currently, with Chase Owens, is one half of the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions. So those are the ones that are, I can see, likely being in it. And then the guys that are not impossible for being in it, Kota Ibushi, despite the issues that have been talked about extensively on Twitter, and the New Japan had a press conference about those issues, not getting into those here, but it's not impossible to see him, and that Satoshi Kojima could possibly be in it after the run he's been having in Noah. It's not out of the question. Lance Archer is not impossible, and probably not likely, but with his connections with New Japan, spending almost 9 years in New Japan, you could see him possibly in it. Eddie Kingston, who's been on New Japan Strong often, and has been in some of the feature events, pay-per-views that New Japan has had in the United States. You could see him being in it as well. Brody King, who's also in AEW, has also been on Strong for a long time. An interesting name, Kaito Kiyomiya from Pro Wrestling Noah, would be a interesting entry. Noah is having some issues, but it would be good to see someone like Kiyomiya on that stage wrestling, because he's a great wrestler. Josh Alexander of Impact Wrestling, current Impact World Heavyweight Champion. He's been in New Japan Strong a lot. It would be interesting as well, and Eddie Edwards, who I'm a fan of. And he may not be likely, but again, this is a not impossible list at this point, so it's something that could happen and it would make sense. He's a fantastic wrestler. Buddy Matthews has been on New Japan Strong, wrestled Okada. You could see him in it. Maybe that's not likely. It's definitely not a lock. You could see that, like John Moxley, who might be the AEW World Heavyweight Champion at the time, he could be in it again. If he's not champion, but it is looking like he's likely to be champion. Bryan Danielson, I would have put impossible, and I would have John Moxley as possible as well if he wasn't looking like he was going to be AEW World Heavyweight Champion. Would have them both, and Bryan Danielson trained at the original LA dojo, has New Japan roots going back through his whole career, and has spoken about wanting to be in New Japan. The rumors were that he basically told WWE and Nick Khan that he wanted to wrestle in New Japan, and that's why WWE offered the relationship, the exclusive relationship with New Japan in North America that they turned down. New Japan, that is. And Claudio Castagnoli, or Cesaro, or CSRO, however you would pronounce that, would be like he's the most unlikely on the list, but it would be interesting to see him in G1 Climax. That is a possibility. It's not likely, but that's another name. So those are the names we went through. Like, again, the full list of all three brackets, which are likely locks, possible, and not impossible. That's all. Those are all on GamingLariat.com. You can take a look at that. I mean, people that I would enjoy seeing as a journalist and a fan, there's a lot of story behind Fred Rosser and Tom Lawler. If they both were in, that would be great stories to write about and talk about, that, because we're definitely covering G1 Climax 32 extensively on the website, and we'll have more audio pieces as well to go along with that, and nightly coverage of G1 Climax 32 when it begins. So there's going to be a lot of coverage on Gaming Lariat regarding the tournament. And I would also love to see, Hinare and David Finlay, who are two other New Japan Dojo graduates. That would be great to see in their first G1 Climax when everything is coming out of the pandemic, and it's probably going to be big gates, big houses, lots of eyeballs watching. So it would be great to see those two, see what they can do, because both of them are fantastic wrestlers who probably don't get anywhere near enough credit from English-speaking fans, and I do think they would be great to see in the tournament as well. So feel free in the comments to let me know what you think, who you think you could be in the G1, who would you like to see in the G1, who would you like me to write about, who could possibly be in the G1. Just let me know, and thank you for listening.